Welcome back to our Victory Garden series. I'm Ashley with Pitt Moss, and I'm here with the wonderful Doug Oster.
I like how you say wonderful. It makes me feel so good.
Well, you are wonderful because you provided us this season with so many great tips and tricks on how to get our veggies growing. And today's all about tomatoes. I know a lot of people they're still not even harvesting tomatoes right now. Some might be experiencing some problems with their tomatoes, like splitting or end rot. So we're going to cover all of that with Doug today, and I'm just going to really turn it over to the expert.
All right, so let's start with blossom end rot. That has been the #1 problem this year, and that's a watering issue.
Okay.
We're basically done with that, but blossom end rot, just on the bottom of the tomato, it starts to look black. We see it a lot in container tomatoes, but as I said, at this point, we should be okay if you're getting rain. If you're not, it's important to keep those tomatoes watered. They need 1 inch of water per week if you're not getting rain.
1 inch per week.
The other thing that we're seeing a lot of, and if you look behind you, this is just a septoria leaf spot or early blight, and these were the first tomatoes that were put in during the season.
Okay.
These are early girls put in early in May.
Yeah, so our first video that we did, this is like the first round, way back.
And at this point in the season, I'm not even worrying about it. You know, if we were in June and it looked like this, I'd be removing the foliage as we went.
Okay.
And that disease, these fungal diseases, they don't kill the plant, they just slow it down. But I want to show you splitting, and splitting is because of the rain. Let's go take a look.
All right, that's like the #1 problem I hear about, splitting.
It's not a problem.
Okay, well.
Well, Ashley, this is a split tomato,
Yes.
and this is one called Sun Gold. It's
Okay.
very prone to splitting, but what happens is after a dry spell, the plant, when it rains, will uptake all this water, and as that water gets in here, it's too much for the tomato.
So it overwhelms it,
Right,
really.
it opens up, but don't worry about it. They're still edible. They're still fine. You want to get them right away. What happens when they split, sometimes bugs will get to them. So as soon as you see them split, just take them, and they're no worse for the wear.
No, perfectly edible. Keep eating those tomatoes. Even if you see a little damaged parts, just eat around it. There's plenty of meat to that tomato.
I want to show you some tomatoes that don't have the disease issue and explain why they don't.
Okay, let's go look for good ones.
These are tasty.
They really are. All right, Doug, what do we have here?
So this is the last planting. So
Okay.
many people will plant everything the same day in May. Now these were planted in July, and look at them. Yeah, they're starting to get a few little issues here, but nothing to worry about. Almost completely healthy and just filled with tomatoes.
Yeah, absolutely. This new growth is just absolutely beautiful.
Now the best trick at this point in the season to get those green ones to ripen is to remove the tops. This plant will still want to put on flowers and still want to put on little tomatoes, but this is a variety called Rutgers. It's going to take 90 days to get a full-size tomato. We don't have that much time. So if we just snip off the tops.
Oh, that whole top. See, I thought you were going to go in just for the little babies.
This puts the plant into panic mode. Like, it can't make any more.
Okay.
If it can't make any more tomatoes, these are all going to turn red.
Okay, so I've actually heard that a lot from my friends. I've had tomatoes, I've had them in my garden since June, and they're just all green. Where's my red tomatoes?
And it's been one of those seasons. And when I get that question, I just say they'll turn when they turn. But people just want to get frustrated and tear them out, and I'm like, no,
They're still good. You still got some tomatoes on there.
I'm going to cut a few of these off here. This is interesting because these
Yeah.
are two plants. They're both Rutgers, but one is conventional, and the other one is what we call grafted.
So grafted, is that the same thing as like genetically modified?
No, not at all. This is just conventional breeding technique where
Okay.
the rootstock is something that's very, very powerful and disease resistant. We actually cut that rootstock, put a conventional Rutgers on top of it. They grow together, and and because that rootstock has got all that good stuff underneath, it makes the top more prolific.
Okay, and then you can harvest the seeds from that plant.
Yeah, but it would be a normal Rutgers.
Oh.
That's the trick. A lot of people will graft their own, but when you buy a grafted tomato, it's like 5 times the price of a conventional one.
Gotcha.
So I wanted to grow them side by side to see how they did, and
Yeah.
the grafted one is doing its thing, but the ungrafted one, it put on tomatoes first. So
You never know what's going to happen in your garden.
now
sometimes.
we planted some greens a couple weeks ago.
Yes, we did.
But we have some work to do down there.
Uh-oh. Let's go find out what we got to do.
Well, Ash, where we put our radishes, our lettuce.
Yeah,
and
I
some
was
other
expecting a little more oomph by now.
The deer are coming to the side of the fence and poking their heads through.
Ah.
They've eaten all our romaine lettuce. They have not touched our Swiss chard behind you, which looks good. They've taken the radishes. I think they're getting in. I'm going to put my deer netting up around this whole thing now, finally.
Yeah.
They've never got in before, but they haven't touched this lettuce that we planted.
I see that.
And you can see it's too close together.
Okay.
And just as we did early in the spring, we're just going to kind of thin them out, and we never throw away those thinnings because they
are super nutritious.
And super tasty, too.
Yes.
Here's actually one of our radishes. But yeah, we're just thinning them out and giving them just a little bit of space between them. We'll rinse them off, and then we'll nibble on them.
Sounds good and delicious.
And once I get that deer fencing up, we're going to replant because there's still time.
Okay.
There's still plenty of time to plant for people if they want to pick all the way into winter. And as we get closer to the cold weather, I'm going to show some ways that I protect these plants to keep them going. Kind of making an unheated greenhouse out here that's easy and inexpensive.
Well, that's perfect. Easy, inexpensive. That is right up both of our alleys.
Now, do you feel brave?
A little bit.
Because I'm going to show you a berry that grows wild that is really tasty.
Well,
it's a weed tree. Come on.
That does not seem like I have to be brave. You said tasty berry. I'm all in.
Ashley, this is a weed tree called
tree.
autumn olive. You see them growing on the side of the freeway.
Okay.
They can be invasive. I've got 2 of them here. When they bloom, it's my wife's favorite fragrance of the garden, and then it puts on these little red berries that the birds love, but they're edible for us. And so when you're walking to and from the garden, because they're so small, they're kind of a pain to pick. A friend of mine, Ellen Zakos, is called the Backyard Forager, and she's the one that told me about autumn olive. I never knew these were edible until this year. 22 years I've lived here, and I'm just now eating them. And if you just pick one that's pretty red and pretty soft, they are tart, but they're really wonderful. Anytime you eat anything that you're foraging, you have to know what it is. So you have to know that it's the autumn olive.
And it almost looks like, because the leaves are very thin and it's kind of spirally, and yeah, I definitely feel like I've seen these growing across the road.
See, the redder it is, the sweeter it is. You know, some of them will be real tart. This one was really sweet.
Oh wow, it's almost like a raspberry or dark cherry or something, like a sour cherry.
If you have them growing in your woods, if you can find it and identify it, snack on them. Now, next time we get together, I want to show people how to save their own seeds from their tomatoes and other vegetables.
I am dying to know how to do that because it not only saves money, but it's also a fun way to keep your hands in the garden.
And you're going to get the best seeds. You're going to get better seeds than you could get anywhere else because you're doing it yourself.
Wonderful. All right, thank you guys so much for joining us. And until next time, see you later and happy gardening.